Hey everybody, welcome to the Blank Podcast. It's Darren here. Really looking forward to having you join us on episode 4, season 3. Now today, it's all about pressure. We're hearing out in the marketplace right now, lots of pressure, lots of challenge, lots of difficulty. And what we started to do was have a bit of a conversation about this word pressure, some of the key components of what's causing it, and we've got some solutions to how to get through it. Looking forward to seeing you today on our Blank Podcast. Jonathan, how are you, mate? Good to see you from
Darren.
Across the ditch.
Yeah, great to be back. Great to have you back from the top of the world. That must
Oh
have
my
been
God.
a fantastic experience.
Crazy, mate. Crazy part of the world. It was higher, it was harder, it was further than I ever thought. But, mate, it was a really cool experience. I must admit, it was getting away from work for a bit, but seeing how other people live their lives and taking on a big challenge like that, it was pretty amazing. I'm real pleased to have done it, and real privilege to be in that part of the world.
Yes, to see how people live and exist is always a great leveler for anyone that lives in a third world country, in a first world country like New Zealand or Australia. You go to some third world mountain top villages, and I must admit, sometimes I think, you know what, they might have got it right. They might actually just have it right up there, and we're the fools. And we sit here and go, oh, the poor things. You know, they don't have television, they don't have phones, they don't do podcasts.
It's crazy, man. It is. It's just, and to see how happy and engaged and in their surroundings, and how much they want to give and be supportive, and they realize tourism is a real opportunity for them as a country. And Nepal is a challenged country, stuck between, one border you've got China and the other border you've got India, and they're stuck in the middle between those two. Like, you really see a country that's sort of stuck in the middle of that, and realizing that tourism potentially is their way out. So it was amazing experience. It was really cool.
They're almost like the greatest ball kids in the world's tennis match.
Yep.
They're servicing the net while the two superpowers work out what they're going to do. And look, India's only getting bigger and stronger.
Yep, definitely.
China's not done with yet, and they sit in the middle. So,
I noticed there was lots of Indian tourists, like lots of people from India touring there, and it's right on their doorstep. So they're seeing it as and when you put the highest mountain in the world, on the back of that experience, it becomes quite an attractive challenge for people to do. So, it was pretty cool to see a country that's really starting to evolve because of tourism, but then also having to cope with the challenges of tourism. So, it was a great experience.
Yeah, right. And it plays right into the topic today, stress and pressure. I'm sure climbing to base camp of Everest brought its own stresses and pressures, probably different to what we're experiencing in the workforces that we work with. But still, nonetheless, the physiology of the body, the sleepless nights, the aches and pains, metaphorical ones versus real ones, they all correlate in a way. And, just to get to base camp's a massive achievement. So well done to you. Thanks, first member of the Blink podcast to get to base camp. So congratulations.
Yes.
You get the prize.
I think it's the challenge.
I'm now rushing to get myself up Mount Kilimanjaro so that I can take that crown. And you and I are going to race the 7 peaks around the world just because, why not? That's the thing to do. So, well done. But I did notice, in the last week or so, you've had what many kids experience after sporting events, and that's called tournament blues. And it sounds like you've had a little bit of... I don't know if you even want to talk about this. I'm just going to raise it. But you had a bit of holiday blues or hiking blues. You achieved something so great and so special. You've looked forward to it for 20, 25 years. It was on your bucket list, maybe even longer. But I don't want to give away your age because that'll be 2 strikes in about a minute. And you might turn off and just leave me to do the rest of the show, which I don't want because the show's better for having you here. But yeah, it's oh, don't start with the horn. But anyway, you've been in the doldrums a little bit, but I think really speaking to you is what's actually brought you down into the doldrums a little bit more is the stress and the pressure that you're finding people to be under back in the workforces.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it too, and it's sort of that whole scenario is that the more you hang out with these people who are struggling, if you can't get them out of the struggle, you sort of get sucked into it almost like quicksand and put back in it. And so today we're going to hit exactly that, the 5 stresses of pressures and how to handle them. It's a topic that's dear to your heart. And it's going to be a great discussion if anyone is feeling a bit of pressure and the world is going that way. Tony Robbins said it. I'm not a big Tony Robbins fan, but I think he might have got this one right. He stole it, of course, the line. Winter is coming. He says he didn't predict COVID, but he predicted that winter is coming. And I suppose what that means is just bunker down, do the basics, get through it. Don't try and set any records, but just get moving. And I think what we're seeing, Darren, is we're seeing a lot of people, for the first time for many of their working careers, facing a bit of a headwind other than COVID.
And that's pressure, right? And that's why for me this topic today is so valuable, because what it does is it actually gets us talking about pressure in its components. And the piece for me is once you start talking about the components of pressure, you can actually build some solutions and some ideas about actually how to get through the pressured times. Because one of the things for me when I see a lot of these, and as you rightly put, some of these people are really finding these challenges the first time they've experienced these in their career, and that there gives them a sense of, well, actually, how prepared am I for these times, and what do I need to do during these periods of time to be able to get through with a good mental state, but also to maybe some results that get you through, properly. So I think it's such a critical topic, that especially with the way the world is right now, that we get some, have a look at what makes up all the different types of pressure, and then actually have a think about some of the solutions.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we could be going, particularly in real estate, 14 to 15 years since the last real long extended pressure. There's certainly been peaks and troughs.
Yep.
Maybe 6, 10, 12 weeks, maybe a season. Gets a bit tougher. But what I think we're experiencing now is we've seen an extended season. Interest rates don't seem to be coming in to rescue them.
No, that's for sure.
Governments don't seem to be coming in to rescue them. No. Zero interest.
Yeah.
It's just I struggle to comprehend. I don't want to get too political, but I struggle to comprehend out of 2 countries that there is such a lack of leadership. It's another topic for another day, but it just doesn't seem to be. There's no hope being sold out there.
Well, you see, the big thing for me is that because both countries have got themselves into such a financial quandary with the whole area of the inflation rate. So both countries are having governments that are really tightening the belts in terms of expenditure and really pulling back on government spending, because, to be honest, that's been the area in both countries over the last 4 years that has really floated the economy, is the government willing to print and give money into the economy to get us through that COVID period. But because of the volume of money they poured in, that we're in New Zealand, we're starting to really realize that this inflation isn't going away anytime soon, and it's really putting pressure on everybody. So it is the way the economies are suffering. It is putting a lot of pressure on our industries and businesses and the people that work within them.
It's really interesting because we're similar. We've got inflationary pressures, another pressure.
Yep.
But I think the frustrating bit for most people is most people did economics in year 7 or 8 at school. Early years of high school, you got a taste of economics. And you've got a government sitting there saying, inflation's out of control, we need to bring it down, stop spending.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But next week, come Monday, every Australian taxpayer is going to be rewarded with $300 cash to pay for their energy bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's that going to go? It's like the old TV bonus, the baby bonus that we had that ended up being called the plasma TV bonus back in like the mid-2000s. The first home buyer grant in real estate, all it ever does is add more price to the house.
Yep.
People aren't silly. They factor this in. And I think what we're seeing with the workforces that we deal with is that all of these things keep changing all the time, and the governments and the people involved and then the people running the businesses, and then, they just keep changing the goalposts, and that just adds pressure because you're continually trying to move to where the game is, and you can't get into a rhythm.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you can't get into that rhythm, you can't get the numbers that you're after, particularly if you're sales-based. And then that starts bringing real pressure. It brings pressure to the house, to the home, on the family budget. It brings pressure to not delivering the results that your boss is after. It brings pressure to whether you're suited for your role. You start questioning yourself whether you're actually any good at it. Yep. It starts to bring pressure if you're middle of the pack, all right? Because the workplace can't dedicate resources to everybody, so they're gonna focus on the lower performers or the higher performers, the ones making them the money, and the ones who they see can make the greatest improvement. And you're stuck in the middle. You're Johnny Forgotten.
Yep.
And then there's the high performance pressure that, if you're used to being up the top, can you stay there? And what happens to your ego if you don't?
That's a great list.
That's a great list, and that's the list we're going to cover today in depth.
Let's do it.
All right, Darren. Let's hit your pressure list. First one, I'm fighting the light here. I'm in this new studio, and the leaves have gone from the tree. If you're listening on the audio podcast, you won't experience this, of course, but I've got the sun bouncing off. I hope it goes away soon. I'm trying to block it because otherwise I'm sitting in the dark. But anyway, hit it up, Darren. Tell us about how this works.
Well, the first one is financial pressure, right? And I see in the marketplace right now, there is a lot of financial pressure, and that's because, the household expenses have gone up dramatically, interest rates have gone up dramatically. You've got a situation where actually to run a household now is expensive, and especially if you chuck in a couple of kids around that as well, and there's a lot of cost. So because of that, especially if you're self-employed, you need a level of funds to be able to run your business as well. You wrap that up into a total number, that actually adds quite a bit of financial pressure in terms of what I need to generate to pay the bills. And I think that's the key part about this, is a lot of the pressure that we're experiencing at the moment is, as the market has made a dramatic change in a different direction, it really is putting a lot of financial pressure on people's, their spending. They're really having to pull back on all of those dinners and nights out and going out for drinks and all of that sort of stuff, which means a lot of those industries that service, the hospitality sector is getting hammered right now because no one is really, spending money in those areas because the household costs and the household financial pressures are really limiting what you actually can do.
Yeah, and then you look at the workers that support hospitality or work in hospitality, more likely than not, they're younger. More likely than not, if they're not living at home, they're renting. The pressures they've put on landlords because of house prices and the housing shortage, they're trying to get more homes into the hands of people. That's a bit different in New Zealand than it is here because we've got foreign ownership. You guys sort of clamp down on that a little bit.
Yep.
And those people are battling incredible rises in rent.
Yes.
Because landlords are battling incredible rises in interest rates that here, in particular, was told wasn't going to happen, but it did. Yep. And then it flows on and it flows on and it flows on and everyone starts putting the prices up and it's almost a race to get in front. But what you're actually doing is you're causing everyone to drown.
Yep, totally. Okay.
So when people start to feel that financial pressure in a workplace, say you've got, we could go the typical single mum, couple of kids, and she's starting not to stay in front anymore. What should she do?
You've got to get the very first step that I always say whenever you're getting into that financial pressure, you have got to do your budget. You've got to sit down and you've got to go through your bank statements. You've got to go through your credit card. You've got to go through and go, actually, where am I spending the money that I'm earning? How much am I earning? And where is it being spent? And getting a really clear handle on exactly what that budget looks like. Because I mean, if you know you're going backwards, but you don't know why, I mean, that applies a whole different lot of stresses to where you're at and what you're doing. So the big part about this is to firstly get a budget, write it down. Don't try and kid yourself. Don't try and pretend that these expense items are not there, and actually make sure that you actually list everything down and sum it up at the bottom. What is coming in terms of your income, what is going out, and what's left. And right now, there's a lot of people with either zero or a negative number at the bottom of the page. And that's where they've really got to start being a little bit more focused on how to realign that budget with their level of income coming in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things you can do is check your own spending. Make sure your own house is in order. I had the wonderful experience just recently, actually, of having my credit card scammed,
Yep.
hacked, the details out on the internet. I was sitting there 11 o'clock on a Friday night, and I got a notification for a transaction taking place.
Wow.
I'd had that credit card for nearly 25 years. Like, that number was imprinted on my head. I could recite it at the drop of a hat.
So good, Mrs. Craig.
And so did Mrs. Craig. Yeah, so it was very sad to see it go. I'm hiding in the shadows here. I'm going to do something about that in a second. And I lost that credit card, and it was the day before. Of course, it's the day before you're going away, and you've got to pay for the Airbnbs and the hotels and all these different things. And so I had to cancel that credit card at midnight on a Friday to stop the scammers from taking any more money. And then I got reissued a new card. Now, guess what happened? I don't spend anywhere near as much on my credit card anymore because all these subscriptions that I've forgotten about, all these things, it made me look at all these things. Oh, do I need that? Probably not. Let's try without it. Do I need this? Yes. So it gave me the opportunity to almost triage my spending.
Well done, mate. That's it.
It's been wonderful.
That's what you do.
The second thing is that we should. I think the second piece of advice is if you're working, you're in a job, you're a decent employee, and you've got your own financial spending in tow or in check, the next thing you should do is go to your boss and let them know.
Yeah.
Don't go in there asking for a pay rise. Don't go in there demanding more money to get you out of the hole that you're in. But just go in and let them know and say, hey, I'm just going to let you know. I'm not asking for anything, but this is the situation I'm dealing with at the moment.
Yep.
Maybe be willing to do a little bit extra.
Yep.
Maybe be willing to do something on the side. But I think communication is key. And if you've got a decent leader in your business, then I think something will happen. The universe will answer your call.
The other one too is, and you know what you do with your credit card, because you took that credit card out of the hands of the subscriptions. The other thing to do is renegotiate some of the other things that you're spending on. So just have a think about, can you get a better power contract? Can you get a better phone contract? Can you get a better gas contract? Or just look at all of those components and try and get yourself to a point where you can renegotiate some of that stuff, because you did right. It's communicating that with your boss, getting a real plan on what that can look like, actually really does help you get a sense of, my income is at that level, my expenses now have been refined and tidied to the point now where I'm actually getting that bottom number into the positive. And I think that probably is my key recommendation when it comes to that financial pressure. You have got to get that bottom number back in the black. You've got to get yourself where you're not going backwards, and just to take the time of reviewing those numbers, going back through and getting a real key plan on actually where am I spending my money, how am I going to make sure that I get that number in the black, will make you sleep better at night. So that's a really good way of getting that financial pressure under control.
Now we're suffering from a little bit of a technical difficulty because I have tried to switch the lighting here to.
Don't stress about it. It's don't stress.
We've got Darren about it. Most people listen to it as a podcast rather than watch it.
Yeah.
on the YouTube channel, but the YouTube channel is available. So I think we've covered that pretty well. So the first thing to do is check your own finances. Get your own house in order before you start asking for help from someone else. Because there's nothing worse than someone crying poor and you help them out with a bit of cash, and then the next thing you see them at the footy or you see them at the Taylor Swift concert, and you're sitting there saying, "Hold on a minute, where's that $500 I lent you?" Yet you're out there spending it. So that's annoying. Get that sorted. Then go and speak to your boss.
Yep.
Speak to your workplace. Offer you extra services for extra reward. I think that's key. Because you've got to remove that pressure. If you've got financial pressure, John Shackleton says this all the time. Darren, our number one favourite, most used guest of all time, the great John Shackleton, he says, financial pressure is the start of all the rot in your life.
Well, it causes so much, and that's why it's number one on the list, right? Because that financial pressure will go through lots of different places to push you down paths that you never would go, or can cause havoc in a household. When you've got those pressures in place. So yeah, you've got to get that sorted, and you can't keep your head in the sand. Like, you got to face it, and you got to front it, and you got to go, right, what am I going to do here to create these changes? Because once you got those changes made, you will absolutely feel more at ease and reduce that pressure.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yep.
All right, number two.
Number two is result pressure. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing this quite a bit at the moment where when you look at offices or you look at businesses and they're looking at their result and they're going, Darren, look, we are not getting the result we were getting 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Like, the result we're getting now is terrible. So what we want our team to do is to get back to what they were doing, or to get back to those results that we were getting. And what we've got to be really, really having to think about here is we're in a completely different marketplace than we were. So even though there is result pressure, i.e. we still need to get a level of sales, or we need to sell a number of cars, or we need to sell a number of houses, or we need to sell a number of widgets, whatever it is, we've got to get really clear on actually what this market will allow us to do, and then try and make sure that we've got targets that represent that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, my formula for life is always happiness equals expectations over reality. I'm just trying to block this out. It's killing me. Happiness equals expectations over reality. And I think everyone has to accept the fact that the world has changed.
Yep.
And, there were some industries that during the extreme circumstances of COVID, extreme and unexpected, boomed through the roof.
Yep.
If you're a seller of face masks or rubber gloves, it's going to be very hard to be doing the numbers now that you were doing in February 2021.
You got it.
All right. If you're a rat test builder, all right, when at a time in 2021 or 2022, whenever it was, where everyone had to do a rat test before they could enter a building, you're not going to be doing those numbers today. There's a reality to the situation, and that formula is always happiness equals expectations over reality. So readjust the compass. But I think what everyone needs to focus on is, are you doing your best?
Yes. And I think the other part for this, for me also, is when you've got companies that are going, you know what corporates are sometimes like? They go, this is the sales target we wanted to smash out of the ballpark, 5 years ago. And every year since then, we want to increase the sales target by 20%. So every year after year, we're trying to strive for 20% more on top of what we did in those amazing times. But actually, when you look at the way the market is and the environment is, some of these aspirational numbers that the businesses are talking is just unrealistic. And I think what we've got to be careful of is that you've got some businesses that are putting lots and lots of result pressure on their sales team or sales environment, where realistically, they're working hard. They're chasing every opportunity they can possibly find. They're having good conversations. But at the end of the day, you're not going to knock those big numbers that you previously have done out of the park. And I think that's just, when you've got this result pressure at the moment that you've got to hit a particular number, I think that's just pushing teams crazy. It's not good. It's not healthy.
So I think what that comes down to, the solution of it is, again, communications.
Well,
If
yes, but
if
it's
you're
getting a
talking,
better handle on the market. So before you set the numbers, actually understand what's real out there and whatever what the market is actually providing and doing, and then reset and make sure that those numbers are still challenging, but are actually realistic to the current market.
yeah, but it still comes back to communication. A good leader
Yeah.
will seek that information from their
Yes.
sales team,
100%. Yep.
and a
Very good.
good sales team will feed that information to the
Yep.
leadership of the
Yep.
business because they want them to understand where it's at. Now, we're not talking about Johnny come lately who's just been hired and he walks into the car dealership and says, you're never going to sell all these Teslas.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to drop the price by 25 grand. Well, of course, his job's going to be a lot easier if he drops the price by 25 grand. But so that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about real communications, real measurement,
Yep.
real
Good job. Yep.
scenarios. So get the data, look at the data, analyze it, translate it, and then communicate it. And that's
Yep.
both up the chain and down the chain.
Yep. 100%.
Because then you can all come together. If all the facts are on the table and you're communicating openly, then we can all come together and agree on a midpoint or agree on a target that's reasonable for everybody.
So in your business, have you got a realistic target up on the wall? Because I have. One of the things that I do is I go, in this market the way we are at the moment, there's a lot of people looking for some help. There's a lot of people looking for some support. So we've got to have a good number up on. Yep, good boy. See, that's exactly it.
So I rewrote this the other day because the targets I set at the start of the year,
yep,
it's different. The world's different.
Yeah, good. Nice work.
The world's different. So I'll tell you mine. I shared it the other day in your great Implementation Academy. If there's anyone listening that doesn't go to Darren's Implementation Academy, Friday mornings once a month, great group of people willing to learn, like-minded individuals who want to expand their knowledge. You share some incredible stuff in that. Just to give people a taste, get them fired up for the weekend and thinking about new things. Sometimes I make a special guest appearance, but it's an early call for me sometimes. And the dog demands to be walked, but on the colder days lately, I've found myself there. But I rewrote my strategy. I rewrote my targets.
Yeah.
And so it's called. I give it a name. It's called the Power of 10.
Love
Power
it.
of 10 strategy. I've reduced actually the amount of products or services that I'm offering to the market because rather than offering everything, I want to just focus on the three main things that work best together. I've got rid of all the frills and distractions.
So what you're doing is really getting clear on the results or the targets that you can actually achieve that give your business the success at this time, and that is such a powerful thing to have done, mate. Well done. Love it.
Well, I think
Very
most
cool.
people would go the other way. I think most people would be tempted to say,
Yep,
what
100%.
else can I do to make extra money?
That's it. Yes.
And I've gone the other way and said, no. Where can I focus my time on products and services that I know I can already sell?
Yep.
People already buy this stuff from me. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just find more people. Do
Love
more
it.
of it. And on a couple of things, I've even dropped the price a little bit just to make sure that I get more of it.
Love it.
And so it's Power of 10. And it's 10 across each of the three products. And, hey, it's working because I just knocked the first one off.
Love it.
Just hit that target. Now I'm working on the second target. And then once that's knocked off, I'll move on the third target. I'm not moving on all three at the same time. I'm being very methodical about getting that result locked in. Then I'll move on the next result, and then I'll move on the next result, and then I think within
this is gold, mate. Because there you go. That there is taking the result pressure off the table because you're controlling exactly what you're striving for. You're giving yourself the permission to knock each target off, and mate, that's how you absolutely reduce that result pressure. Very cool. Well done.
Well, I'll be honest. I've spent a lot of years scrambling, doing lots of different things.
Yep.
So being really clear on your product, really clear on how you serve and work and your role in the work that you do.
Nice.
Being really clear on that allows you to be hyper focused and remove the pressure.
Well done.
Because
Love it.
all you got to do is follow your systems and your processes. Now, if you follow your systems and your processes and they don't work, well, then you've got a problem with your product, not with the role you're playing.
Yep, absolutely. So let's just change to the next for number 3, because what you've going on to here is
Oh, I
actually
jumped on
role.
to the next one, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, because this is role pressure, right? Because it's exactly what you're talking about now is your ability to be able, because there are a lot of people out there. This is the situation that's happened. So you got a lot of businesses that have, either laid off staff or given people early redundancies, or been able to reduce the human labor cost, which has meant that actually some of the jobs that were done by other people are now having to be transferred across to other people in the business. So all of a sudden, what you've got is you've got role pressure. So now, as a business, I need you to do more for the same pay. I need you to get more result or more output for the money that I'm spending on my human resource. And I must admit, I still have this challenge that I still hear some people at the moment going, oh, well, I just want to reduce this and change that. And my hours are too, I want more hours because I want more pay. And what they're forgetting is that actually creating the value back to the business is what creates your pay. And right at the moment, role pressure is a high component, because as an employer, we need you to do more at a time when, in fact, we probably are not raising that level of remuneration.
And I also think the employers have to be careful that if you load up your good people, because
Yeah,
they might be a gun
totally,
salesperson, and then all of a sudden you give them a
totally.
role that's incongruent with the way they work in the role
All
where
their
they're
skills,
successful,
all their skills,
they do two jobs badly rather than one really well. And
100%.
I think that's where my business turned the corner. Was the moment I started saying no. We had a whole episode on the power of no in
Yep,
season 2. I was doing too many things. I was
yep,
sitting here, and on a Tuesday I was a filmmaker director. On the Wednesday I was a social media manager. On the Thursday I was a professional speaker. On the Friday I was, I don't know, doing something completely random and corporate comms or crisis communications. Like, I was doing so many different things. I didn't have enough drawers in my desk for all the different businesses or products, like types of ways that I was working.
yep.
Like, I had manila folders in different colors to say, okay, red for crisis communications, green for this company, blue. Like, it was so hard. Now that I've narrowed it down and I have a
Yep.
really clear role in what I do, and they match each other, so I'm always in that mindset.
Well done. So,
It's
so,
so good. And
so
so
think about.
anyone that can do that, anyone
Yeah,
that can do that in their workplace,
totally.
uh,
That's what I was just going to say. So to those people listening, this is the piece you want to get really clear on. What is the role that I'm actually really good at? What is the role that my company or my business needs me to do? Get really clear on what you can provide in terms of a daily reporting on the back of that. Because if you're an employer or you're a manager and you've got teams that are giving you clear outlines to what they've done, giving you, showing you what their activities were. This is the stuff that I thought about. This is the stuff that I've done. These are the clients I've connected with. You straight away take that role pressure away. And, that for me right now is I'm seeing role pressure because more people are realizing they're having to do more with less, that you have to get really clear on those systems and processes and make sure that you're just being able to nail the things that you are responsible for.
yeah, and I think sometimes when you're under financial pressure
Yep.
or results pressure, and then comes role pressure, what actually happens is you end up saying yes to taking on the extra work to
Yep.
get rid of 1 and 2,
Yep.
just from 1 and 2. But I think role pressure, if you take on too much, leads
Well,
to the other two anyway.
totally. And also it can put pressure on right across your life as well. So yeah. So that third one is just to get really clear on what the roles are, what you're actually really good at doing and getting done to a required level, and just making sure that you've got good systems and processes that you can rely on to be efficient and to make sure that you're getting everything ticked off correctly.
Yeah, and I wouldn't jump to saying yes to the first thing they offer you. I'd be really clear on what is easy or comes easy for you to achieve?
Just be careful that because employers actually at the moment are looking for can-do attitudes
Yeah, right.
and not people that are
Yeah, I'm not saying don't be a
no,
don't
no, 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 no. But what
look at
I'm saying is,
but be plugged in enough to know what's available and say, you
yep,
know what, I'm a salesperson and you also want me to do some PR or some marketing when actually I've got an accounting background. I'd be better off helping out in finance. So I'd rather do sales and finance rather than sales and marketing.
yep,
So
yep. Just,
can I take
just,
that one rather than that one? But it's got to
just be
suit you.
careful. Just be careful. Yep.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, your employer or the leaders of the business may have a completely, a direction that they need to take the business in, and they see your skill set to help them in a particular area. And that's where that role pressure, supporting that understanding might be important.
Fair enough. If you work for people who are that inflexible,
It's not inflexible. It's just that funny the pressures that are coming on. It's their job, it's their job as well, right? Because if their job doesn't get that stuff right, they're on the chopping block as well. So there's a lot of pressure in that part of that role, and I can see it. Like you've got sales managers right now. That the boss is saying to the sales managers, "I need you to get me a better result, and I need you to be doing your role of racking up the sales team to get the result." Well, actually, if the role clarity isn't there and the sales team aren't doing the job and not getting the sales, guess who gets the chop? It's not necessarily the sales team. It'll be the person that's supposed to be driving that result, and that's where that role pressure really kicks in. So yeah, you just got to be conscious of that.
it could be anything. I mean, it could be bad ads. It could be,
Yep,
old models in advertising that aren't working as well as
100%.
used to anymore. You just
Yep,
only have to look at television, and for the first time, I think in 20 years, real estate agencies over here are running TV ads.
yep, yep,
Now,
yep.
what that tells me is that's not real estate agencies making more money. That's TV ads becoming cheaper.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep,
Right?
very good. Yeah, well
Um,
done, mate. Yeah,
I just
you're
don't
on
know if they're
track.
going to bring the results, but we'll see. Okay. Number four, pressure number four is mid performers pressure. We touched on this just briefly in the middle,
Yeah,
just briefly in the beginning. But it is a scary place being in the middle, isn't it? Some people think
yeah.
we're a herd animal, hide in the middle. I just think it's so dangerous in the middle.
Well, it's that zone where you'll often get a whole lot of people that'll sit, they'll earn mid-performer incomes, and let's just use your real estate, right? So they'll earn 100 grand, 80 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand. They're sitting there, they're actually ticking along okay in terms of their world. They're not going backwards, but they're not going forwards. And what happens is you end up in a situation where you go, well, actually, I could go and get a job for $80,000 working as a rep with a bit of commission on top of it, and I wouldn't have to work weekends, or I wouldn't have to do this, or I wouldn't have to do that. So actually, I've got some different choices to make because I'm a mid performer. Whereas if you were making 200 or 250 or 400 grand a year, that decision wouldn't be there, right? Because you know that the money you're earning in that role is way higher than you could earn in any other role. And the trade off is yes, you work weekends, but you receive a much higher level of revenue for doing that. And that's the piece where that mid performer pressure starts to kick in because and I've had this with salespeople where and specifically real estate where they go home and they're on 80 grand or 100 grand and the wife says, you know what, you could get $120,000 being a rep working for a medical rep, being a medical rep. So why are you doing real estate when you're working weekends and why don't you just go and take up a full-time job? And that mid-performer pressure comes on, or mid-performer real estate agents when they go to the pub with their mates, and one of their mates goes, oh, what do you do for a job? You go, a real estate agent. Oh, bloody real estate agents. They're overpaid, rah, 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 rah. The whole circus goes on. And if you're not one of the high performing agents, that creates a lot of pressure on you, right? Because you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm perceived to be a really high performer because I'm in this industry. But actually, the truth is I'm a mid performer. And that creates quite a bit of pressure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those interesting industries where, particularly real estate, mid performer is such a bad place. Like you're talking 80 to 100 grand. That's New Zealand. Even Aussie, you're hardly getting by there. With inflation, you're not going forwards, you're going backwards. You go work at the Apple store for 80 to 100 grand a year. Go
Yep.
work at Bunnings. So if you're going to be working the weekends, if you're going to be in that industry, strive, because it is one that amplifies.
Yeah.
Your efforts are amplified in real estate.
So getting stuck in that sense of being a mid performer, mate, I tell you, and now just because we've said this, right? If I'm a mid performer, I'm listening to this. Here's Darren Jonathan saying you've got to get out of that mid performer zone. What have we just created?
Anxiety and pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah.
You got it. And and I see it all the time, man. This is just, people go, and then they'll start to be defensive on the back end of it. No, I don't really want to be a high performer. I don't want to work the hours they do. I don't want to have the team. I don't want to have this. I don't want to have that. They'll justify it. Yet in their mind, they're going, oh my God, I'm sitting in that mid-performer pack, and actually this is not where I should be anyway.
And guess who's first one out into the staff car park when Johnny number 1 turns up in his new car?
Totally.
Yeah. Matthew mid-performer.
Oh, tell you.
Matthew mid-performer, he's straight into that driver seat. Oh, man. Yeah, wow.
You've done so well.
Yeah. Jeepers. I wouldn't have got this.
And mostly because they're in the office, mate.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Then they sit there and feel sick in the stomach, and then they go, wouldn't have chosen this colour. They'll find something wrong.
That's right. Okay, now,
we laugh about this, but the funniest thing is, right?
We know this so well, mate.
We're picturing people in our heads that we work with here who do this. We're not making it up. Like, I've got people in my head.
They justify it to me all the time, going, Darren, I wouldn't want to work those hours. I don't want to work weekend. I don't want to work like that. And I'll say to them, I'll click my fingers and you can have what they have, the income they have, and the lifestyle they lead. Would you like to do it? And do you know what they say at the end of the whole piece?
Oh, let me think about it.
I'd love to. That's actually what I want, Darren. That's what I'm working towards. And I'm like,
But the thing is, when you first meet them, they don't. You give them the pathway and you say, there it is. There it is. Hey, I've been there. I'll put my hand up. There it is. And you come back a month later and you're like, oh, well, the Blues lost last night.
Totally.
The night after you told me how to do it, my footy team lost. So I just got in the doldrums a little bit, or it rained.
Okay, so here's the piece here, right? So here's the piece. Mid-performer pressure to change this is start working out what the next step up the rung it looks like, and start putting those behaviors into place in what you do. So what you do is don't try and be astronomically, really chasing an unrealistic target, but just move yourself up the pecking order one step. So, okay, for the next 2 months, you're going to make more calls. You're going to make more face-to-faces. You're going to chase on some more buyer opportunities to get some more deals across the line. You're just going to do those core basics that are going to start to lift you out of that mid-performer pack, because you and I do this all the time with salespeople, right? We take mid-performers, not really changing too much in their business, but giving them more skill or more targeted activity, and they can start moving up the leaderboard reasonably quickly. So it's about just being really clear on what are the activities that you need to do, and then actually make sure that you're doing it, because that'll take you out of that mid-performer pack.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer of momentum as well.
Yep.
And I think
100%.
Check the things that you're doing and make sure you're doing them to at least 80 to 90% of your capabilities.
Yeah.
Because if you're a mid-performer, you're only doing 50 to 60%, 40 to 60% at times.
Be honest.
So what I would also do is find the high performer in your office.
Yes.
Become friends with them. Don't just ask them straight out. Become friends with them. Follow them around a bit. Watch them a little bit. But ask them. Once you're comfortable enough with them, say, if you were me, what's the one thing you'd change? What's the one thing to have the biggest impact on my numbers?
Yes.
In the next month? What would you suggest I focus on?
Love it.
And right there, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say the one thing that you hate the most.
Yeah.
They're going to give you the hurdle that makes you feel sick in the guts. It's like you with me, cold calls. I'm like, Darren, social media, I don't have to cold call anymore. Like, I can just message and make videos and reply in the comments. And my business was mid-performer. Parts of my business were completely mid-performer, lacking. Pick up the phone. What happens? Even the social media goes up. So whatever it is, and that was the biggest hurdle for me. That was the biggest sick in the guts thing. That's what's going to happen here. You're going to find the high performer. You're going to say, what can I do? And they'll give you the one thing that you feel the sickest about. But as David Goggins says, our favourite, go into the battlefield, do it. You'll hate it, but when you come out the other end, you won't be as scared of it.
That's it.
Brush yourself off. You're in the war zone, and keep going, mother effers. That's how he's going to do it, right? So that's it. You're in the war zone. Get that warrior mentality into your head and just confront the boogeyman straight on.
Yep. I love it. Last one.
Yep. Here we go.
Last one is the high performance pressure. And I tell you what, again, in challenging markets, especially the one we've got now, after the heights that many people were able to achieve, right? You got high performers at the moment that were smashing the light bulbs out every month, and we're just doing magic numbers, right? And now all of a sudden, those numbers are either not achievable, or the income's not there, or it's changed, or the client bases that they were getting that business off of are not doing the level of business that they were. This is when high performers all of a sudden start looking at the board, going, I'm a lot better than this, but I'm not achieving, or I'm starting to feel really sick in my guts because I bought 2 Maseratis and not one, and I'm struggling to afford one, and what am I going to do with the other one? And it's that high performance mentality that you got to go actually whoa up the truck a moment, and again, just take stock of where you're really at, because, you know, being a high performer, sometimes you can get a wee bit giddy with, you know, lots and lots of opportunity to buy or to have rather than what you need. And I think that's the bit for me with high performers is, especially in this market right now, remember what got you successful. Most of the time it was good activity, but most of the time it was good clients coming to you. And now it's a chance for you having to go back to your clients. And I think, you know, when you look at high performance pressure at the moment, it's definitely there. But you've also got to make sure that you're getting some support wrapped around you as well.
Yeah, I think for high performers, it's interesting because I think it's more psychology based. High performers hate shrinking.
Yeah.
They hate things shrinking. You see great high performers when they get to the end of their business career and they're about to retire or they're about to sell their business. They hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
totally.
They lose their identity.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when that starts to happen, the natural human instinct is
Yep.
when you start to shrink and your ego takes a bit of battering, the natural instinct is to hide away.
Totally.
I reckon you're going to be the first one to agree that hiding away is not what made them the high performer.
That's right. Totally.
Right? So you've got to think of it. You got to take control of your mind, take control of your brain, and take control of your actions. Look at your human behavior and say, okay, I've had a bad month. It's the worst month I've had in the last 5 years. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to hide away or monitor your behavior? Are you getting up a little bit later? Are you not making the calls? Are you leaving some calls on one day to another day? Are you not going to the meetings? Are you not going to the local footy club like you used to? Are you not walking the yard as much? Are you sitting, like if you're at a car yard, are you sitting at your desk for more minutes than you used to? You're not making as much content as you used to because you think you haven't got enough to spruik about, because when you're flying high, you're like, sold this one, sold this one, sold this one, sold that one, and now you don't have that record on your books to be able to talk about. And it's going to take some thinking for you to say, okay, how else can I fill my social media content schedule? Or how else can I fill my social networking schedule? Or how else can I fill my call schedule? What else can I talk about? What other value can I add?
That's it.
That's going to fill the gap.
Love it.
The answer is not to hide away, not to submit to your ego and hide, because that's naturally what's going to be the instinct. You got to fight against it.
Love it. Very good. That's so cool.
There we go, guys. We have now hit on the end of Season 3, Episode 4, 5 stress-causing pressures, and hopefully we gave you some tips on how to handle them, gave you some strategies on how to move forward, and get your mojo back in a market that doesn't have a lot of mojo. I tell you what, activity brings action, or action brings activity in your business. Maybe you got to do something a bit different. Maybe you got to do a bit more than what you used to. But I'll tell you what, money is still changing hands. People are still transacting. And so if you get out there and put yourself there, it's going to work.
Can I just say what you said then was the market is lacking in mojo, and I totally think that's the case. But it's actually responding better to those that bring the mojo. So if you bring that mojo to the market, you bring the excitement, you bring the offers, and you actually engage with your audience, understand their need a bit more about what they're really looking for or what their timeframes are, you actually will build some amazing clients in these challenging times. And, we've been through some challenging markets historically, and I've seen, especially with GFC and all those different challenges that brought. This market is exactly the same. If you do the work and you connect with the market and you understand its need, you will certainly gain the opportunity. So those 5 topics are really, really rife in the industries right now. And I think what we've created there is some real actions that people can take and set up their year, because we are heading our way to halfway through the year. And I think, the second half is going to be better, but it's still going to be challenging. So I think it's important that we focus on that.
Yeah, I think it's a cycle. It's always a cycle.
Yep.
We've been here in 2009. It was different. It was a sharper drop, probably a heavier landing. Everyone got shocked for a bit, but then within 3 to 6 months, everything had started to pick up again. And once things start to pick up, people got active. This is a slower, softer landing in terms of financial explanations. It's probably going to go till maybe April, May next year. That's what a lot of the forecasters are saying. But it's exactly that. There are people out there looking for energy.
Yep.
They're looking for people with energy to represent them. And if you mope around, moping about the fact that the world's not as good as it used to be for you, then that's what you're going to attract. You're going to attract other mopey people who don't want to make decisions. But if you give out the vibe, you give out the energy, you give out the effort, just have a look at what happens. Report back to us by the next episode, and we'll include you on it, because it's going to change.
It is. Thanks, mate. Bloody good. Great session. Great conversation. Enjoyed it.
Season 3, Episode 4. Blink. We're out. See you next time.
See you, everybody. Take care.